Hi, welcome to Best Stories. This is the Adventures of Packy and his Barn Friends, a children's podcast. Season 1, Episode 13, The Barnfest. All the children were busy packing up a basket for their picnic. They had packed up some watermelon, some hot dogs, and some vegetables for a snack. After the children spent the day swimming and running around on the playgrounds, they enjoyed their wonderful picnic they had packed to make for a very fun day. And as the children lie in the sun, the only thing they thought that would make this better was a story about the adventures of Packy and his barn friends. Right now, said their mom. Yeah, said the children. We just want to rest and listen to another story. We're too tired to play right now. All right then, find a seat and get comfortable, said their mom, because it's time for another story about the adventures of Packy and his barn friends. What a delicious smell, Priscilla squealed. What is it? I don't know, Packy whispered, but I smell it too. Why are you hiding behind that hay and whispering? Said Priscilla. I'm trying to hide from little Jeffrey, Packy whispered. Do you see him anywhere? No, said Priscilla. Just that wonderful smell. Where is it coming from? Why, it's all the fruit and vegetables the farmhands have harvested from the garden, Clara mooed. Yum! Summer on a farm smells so good, Priscilla said, smiling. Yes, mooed Clara, but the best part is that we gather and collect all the extra food from the garden all summer long. Like today, when the farmhands were harvesting the garden, some of the fruits and vegetables fell off that big wagon. After that wagon is left, we all rush about and grab anything that fell off, Clara mooed. Then, at the end of summer, we have a big party with all the food we have gathered. Ginger honked. Yes, the Barnfest, a big smorgasbord with all the fruits and vegetables that have grown in the garden. And Oliver grunted. And after the farmers finished their harvesting a certain section in that garden, any fruit or vegetable left, we can grab the ones they left behind and didn't pick. I believe they finished the section that grows tomatoes and beans. I was on my way to the garden right now, if you want to join me, said Oliver. Packy jumped out from behind the hay. I'll go, shouted Packy. He didn't even care if little Jeffrey found him. Both Packy and Priscilla were excited to learn all about the Barnfest, and even more excited to join Oliver in the garden. Then Packy quickly ran out of the barn. Priscilla shouted, Hey Packy, wait up! What's the rush? Well, I'm still hiding from little Jeffrey, explained Packy. Okay, said Priscilla, I give up. What is the name of this game? This is not a game, said Packy. I'm tired of little Jeffrey following me everywhere I go. I wake up because he is flapping his wings on me. I eat my breakfast and he's eating and pecking everything I eat. It's too much, protested Packy to Priscilla. Well, he will be leaving soon, said Priscilla. Yes, I know he's growing up, but I think that's the problem. He isn't so little anymore, said Packy. He's a lot bigger, and when he beaks or pecks me, it leaves a bump. He's getting stronger and faster, and that's why I'm hiding from him. Well, you should try talking to him, Packy, said Priscilla. Tell little Jeffrey that now he's bigger and stronger. His pecks and beaks are too much, and you don't like it. I tried, said Packy, but he won't stop. Well, what did you say, said Priscilla. I said, Hey, little Jeffrey, stop that. And just as Packy said that, little Jeffrey came up from behind him and pecked his tail, and Packy was sent rolling backwards, landing on his head and scraping his paws. Hey, stop that, said Packy. But little Jeffrey just pecked at a seed that was stuck in Packy's fur, which then took a chunk of Packy's fur with it. Packy shouted to Priscilla, See? Priscilla wanted to say, Packy, I think you need to say more than just stop. Because now, even though little Jeffrey is getting bigger, he is still considered a gosling, and he is still learning. But before Priscilla could say anything, they had arrived at the garden, and the smells of the garden smelled so good. Everyone rushed into the garden and started nibbling at the tomatoes and beans that had been left behind from the farmhands harvesting. And the thing was that when little Jeffrey and Packy were together, they really seemed to have a lot of fun. In fact, Packy and Little Jeffrey were tossing the tomatoes in the air for the other one to catch. Now Henry, Clara, and Lily and her lamb twins joined everyone in the garden too. All the barn animals had made their way to the garden the next few mornings as well. In fact, so much that the garden's beans and tomatoes section of the garden had been completely devoured after that last morning's visit. There was not a tomato or bean left in the garden. And I mean the whole bean and tomato plant. There was nothing but mounds of dirt where the plants had once been. And the next morning, when the barn animals moseyed out to the garden, there was nothing to eat where the tomato and bean plants had been. The garden was bare. But the animals were not worried. There are plenty more plants and vegetables in the garden. And after the farmhands finished harvesting the peas and the peppers, they would be able to come back to the garden and eat and pick those plants and vegetables. And even though there weren't going to be any tomatoes or beans left for their Barnfest, there was still plenty of other food left in the garden for their party. Henry said since it was such a nice day, he wanted to go to the meadow anyhow, and Lily and the lamb twins followed him. Oliver said he found a big mud puddle that he wanted to go check out. Packy and Priscilla went to the pond, and Ginger and the goslings followed. They had had their fill of the garden anyhow, and they wanted to enjoy some summer fun by the pond. Clara hung out under a tree near the garden, close to where the wagon parked for the day. She liked to eat up any food that fell off the wagon. "Well, the food is already ripe and picked. It's delicious," mooed Clara. And like most days in the warm sun provided a perfect atmosphere, and the barn animals really got caught up in all the summer bliss. And since Clara had made this her ritual to hang out by the garden, she was quick to share with her friends when the farmhands had finished harvesting another section of the garden. All the barn animals would hurry to the garden on those mornings and eat up all the leftover vegetables. But the barn animals couldn't seem to stop devouring all the vegetables, including the whole plant as well, and then that whole section of the garden would be completely wiped out. Just mounds of dirt were left. And then, once there was nothing left to eat, the animals would go back to enjoying the sun and all their summer fun. Now, Priscilla was the first to start to realize if they ate all the food and plants in the garden, and Clara ate up anything that fell off the wagon, what food would be left for Barnfest? This could be a problem. Oh dear, they wouldn't have any food for the Barnfest. There would be no smorgasbords of fruits and vegetables for a party, and they had already invited many other animal friends to join them. But when Priscilla tried to explain this to the barn animals, no one listened. Packy kind of shrugged it off when Priscilla told them they should make a schedule for collecting food for the Barnfest. So, one night after dinner, Priscilla tried to explain to everyone, "We are eating up all the fresh fruits and vegetables from the garden, along with all the fresh fruits and vegetables that fall off the wagon. We aren't saving any crops for our Barnfest." Priscilla showed her friends a schedule that she had put together to show how and when they should pick and save the crops. That way, they would have enough food stored for their Barnfest. But everyone had other things to do. Like that night, they were gathering in the meadow to listen to the crickets. In the summer, the crickets can make beautiful music as the day ends. And no one really thought it was a big deal. The Barnfest was not for a while, and there was plenty of food left in the garden. Priscilla went to Packy again to get his help. She still did not have any luck. Priscilla asked Packy, "What should we do?" Packy replied, "Glad you asked. I don't know. I told you, little Jeffrey is getting to be a big bother. Do you have any ideas? What did little Jeffrey do to you?" Priscilla was getting exasperated. "Not little Jeffrey, Packy. Saving food from the garden for the Barnfest party." Packy said, "Oh, I thought we already solved that problem. There is enough food in the garden. Everyone agreed, so stop worrying." "Do you know little Jeffrey batted me with his wing yesterday, and I fell into the pond?" Packy cried. Priscilla tried to tell Packy again, "You just need to talk to little Jeffrey." Packy yelled, "I did," and then he huffed off angry. Now the next days and even weeks that followed continued to go about the same way. The animals were enjoying the summer so much, and there was always something to do and always something to eat. But as they were enjoying the summer, no one noticed the food pile for the Barnfest was not a pile. In fact, there was no food set aside or gathered or stored up for their wonderful Barnfest. And to make matters worse, Packy was getting angrier and angrier at little Jeffrey. Priscilla tried to explain to Packy that just saying stop does not let little Jeffrey understand what he is doing wrong. But Packy was too annoyed to listen, too annoyed at little Jeffrey. And when little Jeffrey came soaring over to Packy and toppled him over, instead of Packy explaining to little Jeffrey to be more careful and more considerate, Packy exploded. He yelled and sounded angry. "That's it! Stop bothering me! I don't want to play with you anymore!" Little Jeffrey was sad and confused. Packy doesn't usually yell like that. Little Jeffrey fluttered off. Packy stood up in a huff, and all the barn animals just looked at Packy. They didn't know what to say. Over their heads, they heard a flock of geese honking. Packy looked up at the sky, and he knew what that meant. Summer will be ending sometime soon, and little Jeffrey will be leaving soon. But the other animals had another thought in their mind. When they heard the geese honk, they were reminded, wow, it's almost time for Barnfest. And they looked for their pile of food they usually stored up. They realized they had been a little negligent about gathering up food this year. There was no food saved for their Barnfest. Clara saw the looks on all her friends and said, "Oh, no worries. Let's go to the garden now. We can gather up food that the farmhands did not pick." All the barn animals hurried to the garden, but all they found were mounds of dirt. They had eaten up all the plants and fruits and vegetables all summer. There was nothing left. They forgot to save any crops of food. Priscilla looked at her friends, and they were sad. She tried to warn them or help them plan, but they just did not want to listen. And Barnfest was such a special night to celebrate with everyone. Now they had no food to celebrate with, and now they were going to have to tell everyone they have no food. And it looks like this year they're going to have to cancel the party. The animals went back to the barn. They were very sad. And they felt worse because they knew they were supposed to have gathered and saved food all summer. And in the barn, one of the animals went over to where the pile of food was supposed to be, and they saw the harvest schedule for the Barnfest that Priscilla had made. They apologized to Priscilla. They never listened to it when she tried to tell them that they needed to plan and organize for the Barnfest. And now it's too late. Priscilla was not mad. She understood, but she was feeling a little sad because her friends had not listened to her. Well, everyone in the barn was sad. Now let's go find out what is happening with little Jeffrey. He was feeling sad too. Little Jeffrey found Oliver resting in that big mud puddle. Little Jeffrey was upset and he told Oliver what had happened. Oliver explained to little Jeffrey, "Even though you're still a gosling and you love to play and have fun with your friends, you aren't as little as you used to be. Why, look at your feet, little Jeffrey." Little Jeffrey stomped his foot, and mud splattered all over Oliver. Little Jeffrey noticed the mess he made on Oliver. Oliver wiped his face and said, "Now, little Jeffrey, look at how far your wings spread out." As little Jeffrey spread out his wings, he knocked Oliver right in his snout with his wing, and Oliver let out a grunt. Little Jeffrey began to understand a little better why Packy had been so frustrated. Oliver tried to comfort him. "Don't worry. I'm sure Packy will not stay mad. Just apologize and be more careful." Little Jeffrey honked happily. Then he asked Oliver, "What is that garden behind them?" "Well," Oliver said, "the farmhands have just finished harvesting those vegetables. They are all the vegetables that grow underground, like potatoes and carrots and beets." Little Jeffrey was excited. He thought of a great way to apologize. He would surprise everyone with dinner. He quickly pulled up some of the vegetables from the ground and flew home to share them with his barn friends. Now remember, everyone in the barn had been feeling pretty bad for eating up everything in the garden. And then they saw little Jeffrey arrive with a beak full of food. Little Jeffrey explained to everyone that the vegetables that grow underground take a little longer to grow, and then he said the farmer plants them on the other side of the barn, and the farmhands have just finished harvesting them. Priscilla said, "I didn't even know there was another garden." And little Jeffrey said, "There is a lot more food in that garden." Everyone was so happy. Their Barnfest wasn't ruined after all. And this time, they would save the food instead of eating it all. And they even used the schedule Priscilla had made to gather and save the crops of food. Packy went up to little Jeffrey, and Packy said, "I'm sorry." Little Jeffrey was so happy that Packy wasn't mad anymore. Little Jeffrey wanted to flap his wings and beak and peck Packy because he was so happy. He almost started to spread his wings until he saw Packy duck down so Packy wouldn't get batted by little Jeffrey's wing. Little Jeffrey stopped himself. Instead, he just twirled in a little circle and flew up in the air a little bit, but he didn't knock or beak or peck Packy. Packy smiled and jumped up and hugged his friend. And now when the night of the Barnfest arrived, the animals and many other animals nearby gathered to enjoy all the delicious food. The barn animals really had a lot to celebrate. Summer and friends and food. But I think they could even add all the important lessons they learned to that list. The lessons they learned helped them live happier together, and they also helped them be better friends to each other. The Barn Animals Barnfest was a big success and a lot of fun. Thanks for listening to Best Stories and the Adventures of Packy and his Barn Friends.